So, Jono and Chris, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. And I saw your incredible story first on Carte Blanche. But before we talk about the future, can you please tell us, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Grahamstown in the Eastern Cape, and
Right.
yeah, I just enjoyed living in a small town, and just a simple life, not a country boy rather than a city boy.
And Chris, today you're based at Hilton College in the Midlands, right?
That's right. I've been teaching here for about 13 years. And more recently, about 2 years ago, went and jumped into Sport for Lives in a more sort of full-time role, and just teaching part-time at the moment.
Right. And Jono, where did you grow up?
Yeah, similar story to Chris, just down the road from him, East London. It's where I was born and raised. I'm currently in East London, and went to school at Selborne College, and I'm still a teacher there now.
Right, and you're the head coach, right? The rugby head coach at Selborne.
Well, I'm not the head coach, no, but I was involved with the first team, but my team is the seconds. So I was helping out as a manager with the first team, and a bit of coaching on the side there too.
Okay, and the two of you are the co-founders of Sports for Life, and we're going to talk about that just now. But can you tell us, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Jono?
Okay, for me, I wanted to be a professional sportsman. I wanted to play rugby full time, and then I studied theology. So I got my honors in theology. So I wanted to be a professional sportsman, and then work in the pulpit.
Right.
Yeah,
and,
I think.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to say that John is very humble. Actually, he did become a professional sportsman. He was even captain the Border Bulldogs for a bit, which is the professional team in East London. So there we have it. He reached his dream. But yeah, for myself, it was always, my dream career was always basically to help people. I don't know how to make that into a career, and now we've sort of worked it out 20 years later in terms of the thing. But it was really helping people, and the first part of that was becoming a teacher, and studied psychology and English, and an honors degree in education management and that, and was figuring it out along the way. But it was really trying to link sport and helping others. It's always been that for the last sort of 20 years. That was the dream.
Right, and obviously that's what you're doing today through Sports for Lives. And if talking to our listeners, if you haven't watched the story on Carte Blanche, I really urge you to do so. Now, Sports for Lives, can you tell us a little bit more how you're using sports to bring about change and to inspire people?
Yeah, I think, Jono can come in here. I think for just the process of it, looking at South Africa, I know you believe in South Africa so much, Dr. Nick, and it's incredible what you're doing. But for so many years, we'd seen this great divide. We're obviously the most unequal country in the world, and being teachers and how we teach and raise the next generation of South Africans is so key in terms of leading by example and creating opportunities for teenagers or children of all ages to get stuck in terms of what's going on in South Africa. So we really looked at different pieces. We looked at sports being such a game change and bringing hope in the country. Obviously, the poverty being such a big deal, and then non-profits doing such great work. So you get all these three major areas, and now what we've done is just brought them together, and it happened naturally. And so I think that is really what Sport for Lives does. It bridges the great divide. Number one, we're a movement where we're trying to get people to create their own stories of hope and be very practical about demonstrating it in one's community. Jono, do you want to come in
there? Maybe just a more personal side from me. It really started as a grade 10 boy, with a teacher taking me what Dave Leslie calls across the invisible barrier, this iron curtain between the haves and the have-nots. And up until then, I was really clueless, just a rugby guy going to a rugby school, and just doing what I loved doing, until I was encountered with the truth of there's another world out there right on our back doorstep. And going home and being able to wash my hands and realizing I've got a running tap and I've got some of these basic of needs that I've never ever thought about. And so I'd say as far back as a grade 10 boy, this type of concept was always lingering in the back of my mind. As youngsters, Chris and I used to sit in each other's homes and dream about what were we going to do to make a difference. And I think it was a simple concept that that emerged. That was years of us just trying to dream and plan of how we're going to make a difference in our country.
And can you tell us who inspired you in this quest? Who are your sources of, or have been your sources of inspiration?
Chris, I'll jump in here quickly. We both were going to the same church at one stage, and I know we could both quote Nigel Desmond as an inspirational pastor and preacher. He was really inspiring us in terms of you can make a difference in the world. So I would coin him for both of us. But Chris?
Yeah, I think definitely my parents. I mean, they lived that out. They're very generous people, and they sacrificed a lot for others. And so, like Jono said, they exposed me to people with less. And I think that's so key as parents to do that, and as adults to create opportunities for people to see the other world. And so, really, my parents inspired me in that way, and the journey through that. I think that's like no exact. I mean, obviously, there's huge role models, international ones. There's lots of people like that. I mean, more recently, like Seth Godin, the marketing guy, you'd know him probably. Some of his stuff is really good. Guys like a guy called David Leslie as well, amazing. Just different. There's been different guys, but primarily where it started, like Jono, a teacher, and parents, and those pieces of it.
And looking back over the history of Sports for Lives, I mean, today you're running many fundraising campaigns across the country. What would you say was a turning point? At what point did Sports for Life really become, what was crucial to make it a national movement?
So I think, the concept started obviously with Jono. So Jono, he rolled it out first up, I think about 5 years ago. And in the conversation with him, he said, hey, listen, why don't you do it with your team as well? And so we both sort of tested it out, and it's such a great, easy concept to do, where literally our rugby team started to play for a purpose and not just for themselves, and realizing there was a bigger picture. And so for every try that the boys scored, parents donated. And then the beauty of it was, for both of us, Jono with his story and my story, is that the boys went to the orphanages, and the orphans came and watched at our schools as well. So there's this beautiful coming together in this relationship across the Great Divide through sport. And so that, I think that was a turning point in actually just being practical, but not knowing. Most South Africans don't know where to start. They don't know how to give, where to give, and so it's very daunting knowing where to start. So we practically just started with our team, and it was that easy. And then from there, other sports codes started coming to us, birdies for lives. I don't know if you play golf, maybe it's bogeys for lives, or swim for lives, or run for lives. And so this sort of natural sort of movement started to happen, where people, we're trying to empower people to create their own cause and purpose in their sport. And so the turning point was, really, to answer your question, was changing it from just one specific sports code to a national sort of covered brand, which is Sport for Lives, and registered that, obviously, and then planned from there and created an online giving platform as well. But that's sort of third. First we have movement, second relationship, and third we've got this giving platform. So we're not just about the money. Our primary aim is building relationship, because when the heart is softened, then the money will flow, and that's right. That's when heart will change. Yeah.
Dr. Nick, from my perspective, I think Chris really took the reins from those early years. We were literally just trying these things out, experimenting them with our own teams. I think when these movements happen, they're moments that become momentum, and then a movement happens. But along the way, there's sacrifices, and there's real commitments that need to be made. And Chris and his family took that to really build the blocks to what we see now as a national movement. So Chris really took the reins in those early years, and it really started from the question: why does this only have to be for a rugby team? Why can't we go into other sport codes? Why can't we reach more schools and more sport codes with this simple message that we can play for something bigger than just success? We can make sports significant in social good.
Now, you both are leaders in the classroom, on the field, in society. So what is your view on the future of leadership? What would you say? What does the future of leadership mean to you?
Jono, do you want to go there? Or
I love John Maxwell's quote that everything rises and falls on leadership, and we can take it as big as our own country. The state of our country is going to depend on our leadership and how we empower leaders and how our current leaders take the reign. I think we don't just need leaders, but we need hope-inspired, passionate leaders. What I mean by that is, hope is something that becomes an anchor to the soul. Hope is something that's this optimistic, positive outlook, no matter what comes your way. I think it was Martin Luther King said that we can have a finite, we can accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope. And I think it's that hope-inspired leadership where we see a brighter future, we're willing to, and passion is really the other ingredient there for me. Passion is not just loving something. The root word actually means to suffer. So when you have hope-inspired leaders that see something and they're these eternal optimists, but they're willing to do the hard yards, they're willing to suffer to make that vision of the future a reality. I think that's what we need in terms of future leadership. Our whole country depends on it. Everything rises and falls on leadership. But for me, it's what I like to call hip leadership, hope-infused, passionate leaders.
I think, Dr. Nick, for me, it really is, it comes down to us, fully what Jono says, but it's really just actually doing something. Leadership is action, leadership is influence. And we've all got so much influence, and whether we, you think you're just a parent or just a teacher or just whatever we're doing or a teenager, all of us are leaders in our own right because we've got influence on the people around us. And I think we can talk lots, and I think the time for talking in South Africa is done. We just have to get practical. We just have to actually start and actually do something, no matter how small it is. So, leadership for me, leadership is action through one's influence, no matter how big or small it is. One just has to start leading.
And tell us, looking back over your own leadership journey, what have you learned that you consider most important for building future leaders? What is it we have to do to build future leaders, empower future leaders, whether that's in the classroom, at school, in sport, in society, anywhere?
Yeah, I think it's really simple. It's to serve. You look at someone obviously like Nelson Mandela and his whole list of incredible people. And so if it becomes about us at any stage, then we're on the wrong track. And so you got to serve first. I don't know how many years or whatever. You got to learn your trade. You got to almost serve another man's vision and be faithful in that, and be humble in that way. And the key really is not to make it about you or growing your own kingdom, but actually growing the bigger picture, and that there's a bigger story at play. And so once one learns more and more and more over the years that it's not about yourself, that's when the timing is right. So it's less of yourself, and that's when you actually become a better leader. So I think ego gets in the way a lot, one's pride and making it all about oneself. And as soon as that starts to happen, then it's going to crash. And maybe that's why there's been so many crashes around the world and that. So I think just the more we go, and the more we're going to learn that's not about us, it's actually about everyone else.
Thank you. And
Jono, I don't know if you want to come in there.
I can come in there, but
yeah.
I think Dr. Nick's got another question for us.
Yeah, I do. Jono, these are very challenging times for everybody. And what would you say are some of the biggest challenges future leaders should expect to encounter and hopefully overcome in their career?
I'm going to tell you a very quick story. My dad once taught me a very strong leadership principle while going fishing. We were on a bank that went down onto a whole lot of rocks, and then we cast into the sea. And as we were walking back, our bag was on the bank, and there was this fine line between looking where we were going to get to back to our bag and navigating the rocks that were in front of us. And if you did one or the other, you would trip on the rocks. But if you just kept looking at the rocks, you wouldn't get to your bag. And so my dad turned to me and said, "Isn't this a beautiful leadership analogy?" And I think what I'm trying to get to is looking to the bag, as in looking to the vision, but then also looking down to the obstacles and the rocks, and being action orientated, and to somehow combine the two together in that you never lose hope of the vision, but no matter what's going on, you're not so bound on the vision that you forget. I think a good leader has a balance between never giving up on the vision, but also not so bound on the vision that you're not focusing on what's in front of your feet. So I don't know.
Right.
It made sense to me when my dad shared it.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Chris, as a teacher at one of South Africa's most prominent schools that has brought forward many leaders, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I think the key piece, like our headmaster actually always says to our boys, he says we need to be careful of becoming prisoners of privilege. And you know, I think that has always stuck with me, yeah, in the process of being at Hilton College over these years, where, you know, as teachers or anyone in our sort of safety sort of bubbles that we live in South Africa, if we can be quite easily become passive in that process, in the journey of one's life. And that's why, you know, trying to break out of that is so tough. So I think if I were to write a curriculum, or like you mentioned, you know, I think it would start with being trying to create opportunities for lived experiences. So the more we can actually, like Jono said right at the beginning, you know, get into, cross over the other side of the Great Divide and experience and walk a day in another man's shoes, you know, that will really change us. You know, there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of, you know, great material. It doesn't need more material. I think it needs more lived experiences. So the more we can break out of being prisoners, you know, of the things that bind us, of, you know, fear, of, you know, wealth and whatever. Wealth is not bad. It's just saying, you know, those things can hold us back from really experiencing what's really out there. So, you know, trying to get future leaders, you know, like at Hilton College to experience the real world. I think that's what the focus would be, and how we'd package that would be important as well. And that's why we really started Sport for Lives.
Right.
If I could come in with just a practical
Sure.
example, quick doc. We piloted something this year at Selborne with the Grade 11 ELO project. Every term 3, they have a ELO project that's from the textbook. It's in the curriculum, and it's really just a social upliftment project. But for the years that I've been teaching, it's been a purely theory-based project where the guys will answer the questions, they'll hand it in, and they've never thought twice about it. This year, we took our cause and our need through the Boko initiative, and we said, okay, guys, you're going to actually set up a campaign on the Sport for Lives website. You're going to actually do something, and you're going to connect with the need. And so we saw that happen this year. And the most incredible initiatives, from 24-hour rowing to guys setting up a whole new campaigns we've never even thought of, and combined that with the actual live experience that they had. I think those are the pathways that we're wanting to forge with Sport for Lives, really getting into the school and the curriculum and going, how can we actually make this a practical experience for the boys and for the girls, for learners? Because I think there's too much theory-based education going on.
So, John, I think just to add on to you, it's interesting what you say there is that, you know, often we tell our teenagers, I know I've been guilty over this for years, and as a parent as well, you tell your kids, you say, hey, go make a difference, you know, go make a difference, you must do something. And so how's a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old going to actually make a difference if we don't first lead by example as the adult, and secondly, create the opportunity for them to actually give of themselves, of their time and their energy, and their resources in a safe space. And so it's creating those safe spaces. So we're responsible as adults to do that. And so we've got to try and do that more. And that's where the power of the school network is in South Africa to change the narrative in South Africa, is that each school community across South Africa has such a responsibility and such an influence in the community to solve the problems. I mean, you think about the connections, the parents, the access to resources, the next generation of leaders, you think about all the campuses around South Africa. And if we can break into that and break free the chains of the prisoners of privilege and actually think outward, we'll have a movement, you know?
Absolutely. Now, as mentors to so many future leaders, and I mean, I've obviously seen examples of your mentorship on carte blanche, for example, the 300-kilometer run. Can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored, and it can be informal? I'm not just saying a formal mentorship, maybe an informal mentorship, maybe a word of advice that really inspired somebody, you know, that they took to heart.
Yeah, so I can maybe just come in and say, yeah, I think two quick ones. You know, this year, and obviously it's been great what, you know, the Buko challenge you saw on carte blanche, and that there's obviously a lot of other ones, and one of them was a boy, grade 12 boy at Hilton College, who saw a need about the rangers, you know, the game rangers who being killed, who under-resourced, you know, protecting the wildlife in South Africa. And as an 18-year-old, he gave up part of his holiday and he ran 100 kilometers over 2 days, and he raised 160,000 Rand running with the rangers. And he's not a runner at all. The most he'd ever run was 5Ks. And so that was amazing. And I was able to also run with him and be there and talk him through it and walk through it with him. Jono did the same, obviously, with those boys at Selborne. And, you know, just another one, just the final one would be, there's a boy, a swimmer, came to me and said, "Sir, can I do a Swim for Lives event, a 24-hour campaign?" And he'd been in our boarding house for a while, and he'd seen what the rugby guys had done. And so what he did was he swam for 24 hours with 5 of his friends. They raised about 60,000 Rand. But that was great that they did that, and they kept one of the orphanages afloat during COVID. But the key piece in terms of the change was the heart. So his mom phoned me the next day after he had visited the orphans for 3 hours, and that was amazing. He said something shifted in him. The first time he had ever spent time with underprivileged kids. And so that night around the supper table, it was the first time they'd ever spoken about privilege. What does it mean to be privileged? And so this boy had been so changed through his experience that he said he didn't want any more Christmas presents, he didn't want birthday presents, he didn't want to go on a big holiday, and he wanted to adopt one of the kids, you know. And so there was a transformation of heart just by spending time on those 3 hours. So now we've seen this, and now he's done it for a second and third year. So it's not just the one-off. It's the duration of the time, you know, like with our rugby teams, they did it over and over again. It wasn't just the one season, and the coach can mentor as we go.
Thank you. And Jono, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should study?
That's a great question. I currently listen to a lot of Craig Rochelle. He's kind of heading up the Global Leadership Summit. So he would be someone that I follow quite often. Yeah, that would be my guy off the top of my head.
Thank you. And last but not least, Chris and Jono, how can people connect with you, and where can our listeners follow you?
So we are on Instagram and Facebook at Sport for Lives, and obviously our website as well is out there. And so yeah, I can just log on to our website, follow us on social media, and we just about to launch our own vlog at the moment. You know, sort of 5-minute stories of hope around the country, from non-profits through to, you know, sportsmen, ex-professional sportsmen and boys. And so that's coming out soon. Where we just chat to guys for 5 minutes. So be sure to follow us and have a look at that too.
Great, certainly will. And finally, what's your piece of advice for the millions of kids who are now going to leave school, who are going to enter the world of work? What are maybe 1 or 2 success factors they could keep in mind?
Well, so for me, one of my mottos is when you live for something bigger than yourself, you truly find meaning. And so some of the youngsters leaving school just are so success driven. They were wanting to try and climb the ladder, whatever that ladder looks like. My advice would be there's something called significance that is truly worth living in terms of bringing satisfaction, bringing meaning, bringing purpose into your life. We fall for this thing in society. It's marketing, it's advertising, it's our whole worldview that we must be successful at all costs. And I'd like them to question that the meaning of success. What does success really look like? And I think young people need to look at being successfully significant. So I'm not nullifying the success, but I'd say to young people, be significant, make a difference. I often tell my young guys, you're either going to go out there and change the world, or the world's going to change you.
I think it would be definitely, it's not about yourself, like I mentioned earlier. I think the whole world's telling you it's all about you. But I think more and more universities and businesses are looking for people that have got EQ, emotional intelligence, that have got empathy, and actually can realize that there's a world out there rather than oneself. So I think that's really the key, that empathy versus sympathy, not feeling sorry for someone, but feeling with someone. And so, yeah, the more you can look to serve in a community, I think the better in terms of future.
Well, Chris and Jono, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership. And thank you for doing all the great work and inspiring us.